Alright, so continuing on with light color array, this is phase 2. I've already talked about a lot of things previously. I'm going to continue on with that. And yeah, so with the previous things that I talked about, you can sort of think of them on their own, or you can think of that as working together with what things I will describe right now. So it can be perceived, the previous videos can be perceived as their own selves, or it can be perceived alongside with this, whichever way you prefer to see this. Okay, so yeah, a lot of things to say this time, with a lot of different concepts to go over. And so yeah, okay, so I'm just going to go and list it all out and talk about it. And so yeah, okay, so first I'm going to carry on and continue on with the arcs. And there are various lists. There are more lists this time than I talked about in the previous videos. And so one of the things, just to make note here, one of the newer sort of things that I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about certain stellar concepts, okay, which I will get into as I progress on with this. Okay, so yeah, so, and there are many other lists and many other things to talk about. Okay, so continuing on with the arcs, the first one that I want to talk about is clarity. Okay, clarity, a concept that is that can be perceived in so many ways. One of the first things that I can kind of talk about is clarity of thought, clarity of perception, clarity in ideas, clarity in the way you want to make your own world and bring your own visions into the world. So the clarity of concepts and clarity in that. I think that it's a great concept. You can also think of clarity in terms of visual clarity, in the sense that in the sense of visual brightness, vividness, and that clear quality that just visually draws you in, and just makes things, I don't know if realistic is the right word, but yeah, makes it sort of hyper real in some kind of sense. I'm kind of using the word loosely here, but the thing that I want to talk about is that how striking it is. There is the striking quality that is in clarity, and I think as a concept, and in the metaphysics of clarity, a lot can be said. But there is I think always the concept of a striking brightness, like I said, in terms of concepts, in terms of perceptions, in terms of thought, and also in terms of visuals, and I'm sure other ways as well. Okay, so the next the next arc I want to talk about is shine. Again, kind of similar to what I talked about with clarity. There is that idea of energetic light. There's that idea of brightness, and in terms of thinking, in terms of people, a person can have a shine, they can have that brightness, they can have that brilliance that shows in their persona, that shows in their visions, that shows in the way they create. So, and in the way they just are, you know, it's a great thing when a person can just be, and in just that being, there's that shine that emanates from them. It brightens up the world around them. and creates a lot of, wow, creates a lot of that desirable aesthetic and beautiful ambience around them. Is that, I don't know if that's making sense, but yeah, that's what I kind of think of when I think of shine. A person's shine, again, visual and aesthetic shine. So many different ways to look at it. And as I'll get afterwards into the stellar concepts, there's also that, I don't know, okay, whatever. Uh, I'll get into that. Um, yeah, okay. So the next arc after, um, yeah, after shine is intimacy. Intimacy in the way that people feel intimately connected to each other, finding beautiful people that you love to be with and sharing that intimacy with them, sharing those bonds, those connections, forming these deep connections with others and sharing that intimacy and making great bonds with them. And you can imagine in all kinds of ways. Imagine the physical intimacy, imagine the intimacy of souls, imagine the intimacy of emotions, and all these things when they come together and create that beautiful emotion. And yeah, wow, what was I going to say? I just lost. Yeah, but it creates that beautiful emotion of intimacy. And yeah, it's something that is really something that really makes us feel alive. Okay, so after intimacy, there is glamour. Okay, kind of an interesting concept. Again, thinking of in terms of aesthetics, in terms of high aesthetics, many ways, many modes of expression, many ways of creating that beautiful world around the way, yeah, creating a beautiful world of that kind of artistry and beauty. Okay, so after, okay, so the next one is um, wealth and opulence. Again, with using these creative faculties and using a great, um, how would I describe this? By using all these creations, creating a beautiful world, that world would be a world of opulence. It would be a world that has so much, yeah, it creates so much. So yeah, that is kind of the next arc. Okay, so the next after wealth and opulence is wonder or amazement or enchantment or excitement. And this is again, these were kind of related concepts, so I kind of, put them all together. Yeah, with, hmm, with wonder, to see something, I think there is, again, this kind of goes with the last time when I talked about aesthetics. And I think certain really dazzling aesthetics can create that awe when we're just taken by it, and it creates that amazement, and it creates that, yeah, and we feel drawn to it. This could be a person who has that kind of amazing quality to them. This could be a certain creation made by made by some kind of a vision. So yeah, so to feel drawn to that, I think it's an interesting kind of quality. So that's what I wanted to talk about with this. Okay, so the next, this is kind of an interesting, okay, so the arc is, I'm calling it homecoming, and I think to add a little more context to this could be a sense of homecoming from a place of homesickness. So when you in the sense that you're feeling homesick for a certain something. There's something that you feel that, yeah, that you're feeling homesick about, and you when you're finally in that state of mind, it creates it creates a really great way when you feel that sense of homecoming, as though this is all how it was meant to be. This is when there is that sort of an expansion, and in the way that you see it, like this is how it was meant to be, and now you're finally where you belong, where you want to be, where you wish so much to be, and this is where you belonged. And there is that finally that feeling of homecoming. I think it's an interesting feeling. I think a lot more can be said about this, but for now I'm going to move on. Okay, so the next arc is enthusiasm. So many ways that you can perceive this enthusiasm in maybe a creative force, enthusiasm for a certain experience. And yeah, there are so many things can be said. Enthusiasm to learn new things. And yeah, I think it's a great thing to have that drive where you feel enthusiastic about certain new things and new experiences and looking forward to new things. And it's a positive emotion that we feel great about. Okay, so these are the arcs that I wanted to talk about for now. After the arcs, I want to get into the motifs and just a few this time, but I think some things can be said about this. Okay, so the motif I want to first one I want to talk about is zenith, which is exactly, you know, vertical upwards. I think this is a great motif of, I guess you could say, in the sense of an absolute apex, in the sense of maybe you could say perfection, maybe in the sense you could say highest creations, maybe you could say uh, greatness and enlightenment. So I think it's an interesting concept. I don't want to describe it too much. I want to kind of leave it the way it is. But there is definitely that aspect of, you know, heightened greatness in the sense of absolute apex. In some sense, you can think of that. Okay. So the next motive, and it's strange I didn't talk about it previously because this is one of the most beautiful and amazing motifs, which is rose, a very beautiful flower, um, in its symbolism, in the intensity of its colors, in the way that in the intensity of the emotions that it expresses, in its beauty, in the way that it just, in its softness, in so many ways that it appeals to human emotions, some very deep and beautiful emotions. I think a rose can, in a very beautiful way, symbolize those emotions. So I think it's a very beautiful motif and a very beautiful thing, a rose. Yeah, they look very beautiful and symbolize a lot of beautiful things. Okay, so the next motif is green thumb. Okay, being able to grow uh, beautiful plants and trees and all kinds of, yeah, as kind of goes previously with, I talked about the motif of a garden. So this kind of a green thumb goes with a garden. Maybe a person with a green thumb would be able to create a beautiful garden full of all kinds of beautiful plants, producing great visual beauty and also, yeah, uh, great experiences being in there. But yeah, being having a green thumb and growing beautiful plants, it's a, yeah, it's, there's something there's something kind of, I don't know how I would say it, magical about creating all this beautiful life around you, and it creates that beautiful ambient atmosphere of nature. So I think growing all these plants and having a green thumb, it's really amazing. Okay, so those are the motifs that I wanted to talk about so far. And so, okay, so now I'll get into, I want to get into this list, and I want to describe it so far in kind of a way that I'm just getting into it. I want to talk, I want to explore this more. Um, yeah, but I think for now, these are a few things that I'm going to just talk about here. Okay, so this is stellar symbolism, stellar archetypes, and stellar concepts in a way you can say. And I'm going to list out um, some of the stars and some of the constellations. And I think um, maybe maybe I don't want to describe this too much because I want this to be more intuitive in the way that I think stellar language is how stars kind of directly speak to us in a way that this the language of stars, it's a direct language. It's not it speaks to you directly, and I think there is an interesting eloquence to it. And in terms of it's an intuitive sort of language. I'm not even sure if I would use the word language, but there is a certain intuition to it. Okay, so yeah, and maybe you can also think of these as stellar archetypes in the way that they can sort of speak to human psychology and human archetypes. And also you can think of these as stellar origins as well. So there are so many different ways of looking at this, but I'm going to list them out right now, and you can think in which ways you want to perceive these stars and constellations. Okay, so the starting off the first, and this might also, okay, this kind, okay, whatever. So the first one is Orion, the constellation Orion. Uh, a very, I think the the wow, okay, the kind of intuitive concepts that I feel when I see the constellation of Orion, um, those three stars of the Orion's belt, and also the other stars, um, yeah, Betelgeuse, Rigel, Bellatrix, uh, which one was that? I forgot. Um, Mice, whatever. I forgot the name. Misa, I think that's what it was. Okay, not sure about that last one. Okay, and also Kappa, Orion is okay. Whatever. So the way this visually speaks to us, I think there's a. I'm finding it difficult to find the word. There's a specific concept that I want to talk about in a word. I'm not sure if there's even a word for it because I think this concept is so intuitive. I don't know if there is a linguistic word to describe it, but there is, I would say, maybe a concept of advancement. Maybe that's what you could say. And yeah, a very high level of advancement. That's what I would use. Um, and a very high aesthetic. So I'm going to say that for now. There's a lot more to be said, but yeah. So the next is Pleiades or Pleiades, whichever way you choose to pronounce it. And again, these are the seven sisters, a beautiful constellation, and again, so many different archetypes that you can associate with this. And yeah, so with what was I going to say? Okay, maybe there is. Okay, I'll get into some of the other things afterwards. Let me list them out right now. Okay, so the next is Andromeda, the Andromeda Galaxy, and after that is uh, Sirius within the constellation Canis Major. The next is Canopus in the constellation Carina. Um, the next is Alpha Centauri AB, which is in the constellation Centaurus. The next is Arcturus in the constellation Bootes. I'm not sure if that's the right pronunciation. Okay. And the next is the star Capella in the constellation Auriga. The next is uh, the star Vega in the constellation of Lyra. The next is Procyon in the constellation Canis Minor. And the next is Polaris in the constellation Ursa Major. And finally, this is not a star, but finally, I wanted to make a mention of Earth. Okay, so there are, actually, I'm not sure how much I want to describe them. I just want you to visualize and see and perceive and there might be something about this that speaks to you. So yeah, these are the stars and that I wanted to talk about. I'll talk maybe more about them afterwards, but I think right now, in a more intuitive sense, I think you just want to, I want you to list them out this way. Okay. So, okay. So the next list that I want to get into is Pantheon. I've already described a lot of them. I think I described a number of them previously. And so I want to make a few additions to this. And I think these are some interesting additions. Okay, so the first one, the first god I want to add to the Pantheon, this is a male god. There is no name for this god for now, but I will describe him to you. Okay, so this is a male god, athletic. The way this god appears visually is that he is made of, you can almost think of him as being made out of marble, white marble. And there is that absolute, there's that, how would you describe it? There's that stone white type of, bright white stone type of outer surface to this god. And the way his eyes are, by the way, this is also most likely how I want to picture his hair to be. Okay, he has shortish hair, again, white marble-like hair, and his eyes are a bright red, a very bright, striking red. Almost you could see it, maybe it is glowing, maybe it's a glowing red. And I think he has very sharp and distinctive facial features. He has a strong chin, he has a strong jaw, and sharp features, very striking, and especially with this marble-like surface and red eyes, it creates a very interesting look. Now, as to what qualities are present in this god, not sure for now. Okay, but you can try to imagine this god visually. And this is, for now, I'm going to list two of them, two of the more visual gods. And one will come after, which is a female goddess. So yeah, so the next, which I will get into afterwards. Okay, so the next one after this first one, this goddess is called Lumina, which is the goddess of light. And the way I want to perceive this, this goddess is in a more, hmm, maybe there's a certain metaphysical sort of glow to this goddess. The way I have, the way you would see her is that she has hair that is made out of some something like platinum, in the way that there is a shine to her hair, and again a very beautiful look to this goddess Lumina. Okay, and I'll maybe add more things to this afterwards, but right now you can sort of think of her as a goddess of light with platinum hair. I think that's an interesting visual form in which can be imagined. You can imagine what her attire would be, in which way she dresses. You can sort of imagine it. Maybe it's a more, maybe there's some kind of a concept of light in her dress. So yeah, interesting, many ways to think about it. Okay, so the next god I want to talk about, this is a male god. So his name so far not much is known about this god, but his name is Archon. And again, not much is known, at least at this point, but you can imagine what this intuitively means to you. I think you can think of many different concepts as to what this god means to you. Maybe there's, why is so little known about this god and the name Archon? What does that mean? Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that. Okay, so the next goddess after this is the second, more of a color uh, goddess, like I previously described with the marble figure type of god. So her name is, the name of this goddess is Scarlet, and she has, I think, one of the more, that beautiful, brilliant reddish color has an association with her. Maybe it's in her, yeah, you can imagine her in a very beautiful silky red dress, in the way that she looks very beautiful in it, in the way that it, you can imagine in what sort of um, different ways and different backgrounds you might want to imagine her in. There is a lot of beauty in her, and the red, the scarlet color of her dress, it really brings out her personality. She has that, maybe she has a certain beautiful romantic intensity to her. Um, and yeah, the scarlet color, and there's an association with love and lust and beauty. So you can think of in what ways you might want to imagine her. Imagine, hmm, you can think of her in so many different ways, in, like I said, with all these backgrounds, and in, yeah. So, I think you can imagine her in, wow, what am I getting at? uh, okay, so just a second, let me think of a certain, let me try to picture this goddess in my head and see in which way I can describe this to you. Okay. Okay, you know what? Forget the background. You can think of her as She has a very bright complexion. She has, and that red dress really matches and heightens the beauty in her complexion. You can imagine her with bright hair made out of gold. You can think, uh, yeah, I think it creates, you can imagine her in a very beautiful, slim, and beautiful physique. So you can think of, and like I said, a shiny, satiny, sort of silky red dress. So you can imagine, you can picture this archetype in your head and see in which way um, you see this picture of this goddess. Okay, so that is for the Pantheon so far. Maybe I'll add a few more things to this. Okay, so after Pantheon, I want to add another list. This list is, there's just one in this list so far, but I will add more. I don't know how few, but I think so far I'm just going to stick with one. So this is the list of um, humans in yeah, in all the various lists. So we talked about the gods and goddesses in the Pantheon, so I want to talk about some humans. Okay, so far there's just one, and this is a female, a woman, and her name is Ramona. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Maybe I'll expand a bit more afterwards. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at this, and there will be, I will add, I don't know how many, probably a few more humans to this list and talk about them more afterwards. Okay. So, okay, I want to describe some of the gods that I talked about previously. I want to describe them in a more visual and in a more visual way, so you can sort of picture them. Okay. So let's start with Venus. Okay. So with Venus, there are so many artistic ways you can think of. Um, So you can think of her in one of the attires. Um, you can think of a dress made out of. You can think of hmm, a silky white dress in two parts, and you can think of gold ornate decorations in this dress, and you can think of. Uh, hmm, I think, yeah, I think you can leave it at. Um, I would rather describe, instead of describing this word, I would rather show this visually, because this won't necessarily make that much sense. So I had some of the, with the previous gods and goddesses I talked about, I had some of the ideas, but I think I would rather describe them more visually. I mean, show them visually instead of describing them. So I think I'm going to leave it this way, but I think one of the other things that I want to talk about is with Excelsior. I think I want to describe, just to give a basic um, sort of concept of this. You can imagine him in a black, you can think of this as a jacket, a well-fitting, great jacket, and you can imagine him having dark hair and very well set, very well styled hair, and you can think of this black jacket with some gold and maybe some silver designs on it, in nothing too elaborate. It's more simple, and I think this sort of goes with the persona of this god. So again, I would rather describe instead of describing this, I would rather show this visually, because then it would speak to you in a completely different way. So, and yeah, with, again, okay, the one that I described, that I had already kind of described in in a more visual sense was this god and archetype of hero. So I want to add uh, one more aspect to the way that he looks or dresses, and that is an olive wreath. And you can imagine an olive wreath made out of actual leaves, or you can imagine it being made out of gold. Either way, maybe they're both used in different contexts. So you can imagine, already I described the way the rest of his attire before, with um, with the bluish um, cape and those golden hordes and all other things. Okay, so yeah, okay, so all right. So, and yeah, with Dionysus, there is already an association with ivy leaves and purple grapes in his hair, and you can imagine him as having slightly longer hair and maybe a light brownish to dark brownish hair, and it would look really great with those purple grapes and ivy leaves. I think it would look really great, and there is, and also I would associate uh, there is an association of leopard with Dionysus, and I think an interesting parallel could be made with a peacock. I think maybe, I don't know. So I think it can be perceived in that kind of a way. Okay. Hmm. Okay. This is an interesting sort of concept that I thought of, and maybe I can get some interesting thoughts on this. Okay. So I would take the two of the gods that I described previously, which was Excelsior and Hero. I would take both of them, and okay. So the way they they are moving from place to place is with Hero. I described that he has a white flying horse, and with Excelsior, I want to add a VTOL jet, a supersonic VTOL jet, and I think these can be. I have multiple designs in which ways this jet would be. Maybe these are multiple jets which are used in different ways. So you can, so there are interesting ways of imagining this VTOL jet. But I think um, there is, to add a certain mythology to this, I think you can think of a certain, so between Hero and Excelsior, there is, in this mythological story, there is a friendly contest for the quest of air superiority and air supremacy. And the way is both of them, like I described with the flying horse and the VTOL, you can imagine them moving simultaneously in a quest of speed, you can imagine. So I think it builds up and they go faster and faster. And you see Hero on his flying horse, and you start seeing certain vapors moving in the air. And then a sonic boom is heard, and Hero on his flying horse breaks through, uh, starts moving faster than the speed of sound, and there are some sonic booms are heard, and you can see him just move past in a fast way. And I think the VTOL later um, catches up to it. Now, I don't know what the result of this is. I don't know who wins, but I think it's an interesting concept between two different archetypes and two different ways of two different flying machines, I guess you could say. Which one appeals to you? I don't know. To me, both appeal to me. I think it's some interesting archetypes here, and I think interesting ways that you can think of this quest for air superiority and air supremacy. Okay, so you can decide which one appeals to you in which way. Who do you think won? Who do you think wins this, and how? Yeah, in which way? Wow, what am I getting at? Okay, whatever. I've described it. Okay, move on. Okay, so okay. Apart from this, I want to talk about. Okay. I think I've described enough things for now. This was a complete, like, this was all over the place. This was a complete mess. Okay, so I don't know how much of this made sense, and but I think at least I got some ideas to move here, and I think I'm going to add, yeah, more things to this and see in which ways I can think of this. Okay, so so yeah, that's kind of it for this video. And wow, I wasn't that articulate in this video. Maybe I could have made this, I could have described these things in a better way. But I think I got some of these ideas to, yeah, to work here. Okay, so let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any interesting ideas here that sort of appeal to you, or any interesting thoughts that you have on this, or any of your thoughts that you kind of had. So yeah, let me know what you think. And that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Most likely I will make additions to this. So yeah, actually, yeah. Okay, this video has been, like, I haven't, whatever, hopefully I talked about a few things in the way that it made sense. Okay, so yeah, that's it for this. That's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next video.